Welcome to Stuff Works Explained. If you are here for the first time, please consider subscribing to this channel. In today's video, we'll be talking about East Africa going nuclear, where we say that this is the East Africa nuclear movement. And the question we are asking here is whether this is a power revolution or an expensive bet. Across East Africa, a quiet but consequential transformation is underway. While public attention has often focused on roads, railways, ports, and digital infrastructure, four countries, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania, are pursuing a far more ambitious undertaking, the introduction of nuclear energy. For decades, nuclear power has remained a distant prospect in the region. It is discussed in policy papers, but rarely treated as a realistic component of national energy system. That has changed. Today, governments across East Africa are investing in regulatory institutions, technical expertise, feasibility studies, international partnerships, and long-term planning aimed at bringing nuclear technology into their energy mix. The question is no longer whether East Africa is interested in nuclear power. The questions are, why now? Which country is making the most progress? Is this an energy race or a development strategy? Can these nations afford it? And perhaps the most important question is whether any of them will actually succeed. Here we examine where each country stands, the models that they have chosen, the partners they are working with, and the costs involved, as well as the challenges that could determine whether East Africa's nuclear ambition becomes reality or remains aspirational. Let's start by looking at why East Africa is turning to nuclear energy. The common driver across all four countries is straightforward. Electricity demand is growing faster than existing infrastructure can comfortably support. Industrialization plans, urbanizations, electric mobility, digital economies, data centers, and manufacturing, all these require large amounts of reliable power. While East Africa has made significant investment in hydroelectric, geothermal, solar, wind energy, among others, policymakers increasingly recognize a fundamental challenge. Renewable energy sources do not always produce power when demand is highest. Hydropower is vulnerable to drought, solar generation disappears at night, wind output fluctuates. Nuclear power offers what energy planners call baseload power. The electricity generated continuously, day and night, regardless of weather conditions. From a project management perspective, governments view nuclear energy not as a replacement of renewables, but as a long-term anchor capable of supporting future economic growth while helping countries meet climate commitment. The attraction is clear. The challenge is even clearer. Nuclear projects are among the most complex infrastructure programs ever undertaken by governments. They require decades of planning, specialized regulations, highly trained personnel, strong financing structures, as well as robust public confidence. This is where East Africa's story begins to diverge. Let's start with Kenya, which is described as the most structured program. Among the four countries, Kenya possesses the most mature institutional framework for nuclear development. The country has spent more than a decade building a foundation required by the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, which is a phased approach to nuclear development. Through the Nuclear Power and Energy Agency, NUPEA, Kenya has conducted feasibility studies, grid assessment, environmental reviews, and regulatory development, as well as extensive capacity building programs. Kenya's target remains ambitious. Government officials have indicated that plans aimed at beginning construction of a first nuclear power plant and later part of this decade, as well as connecting that to national grid in 2030s. Unlike regional powers or regional peers, Kenya has focused heavily on institutional readiness before selecting a final technology vendor. The country has gone through multiple reviews missioned by the agency, which have generally concluded that Kenya continues to make progress in developing the nuclear infrastructure that is necessary, as well as the regulatory framework that is required. Kenya's strength lies in the fact that the country has developed regulatory structures, invested in human capital, and consistently aligned its program with international standards. In terms of challenges that Kenya faces, its biggest challenge is also strategic. The country already possesses one of the Africa's most diversified electricity systems, supported by substantial geothermal generation, among others. Nuclear power must therefore prove its economic value relative to expanding geothermal capacity, which is locally available and generally less expensive to develop. The financing questions also remains unresolved. A conventional nuclear power plant could cost several billions of dollars before producing a single unit of electricity. The other challenge is where the plant will be located. Initially, the plant was to be located in the Kenya coast. There was opposition from the public. It shifted to Western Kenya, Nyanza, Siaya. Still, there is opposition in that section, so it's not yet clear on where the plant will be located, but most likely it may be located within Siaya County. Let's look at Uganda, the most aggressive ambition. If Kenya has been the most methodical, Uganda has been the most aggressive. Uganda's long-term energy strategy envisions an enormous nuclear contribution to the future electricity generation. Government plans have identified multiple potential sites, with one in Buyende emerging as the key focus area. In 2025, Uganda advanced site evaluation activities through agreements involving South Korea, Hydro and Nuclear Power, KHLP, and KEPCO, Engineering Construction. The project is under assessment, is extraordinarily large by regional standards. Uganda has simultaneously pursued relationship with international nuclear partners, including Russia, South Korea, as well as Chinese stakeholders over recent years. Its strength, Uganda possesses one major strategic advantage. The country expects future industrial growth linked to oil production, mineral processing, and manufacturing. Officials therefore view nuclear energy as a long-term industrialization platform rather than simply an electricity project. Its challenge, one, is the scale. Uganda's nuclear ambitions are among the largest in Africa relative to current electricity demand. From a project management standpoint, this creates significant execution risk. Mega projects frequently encounter delays, financing constraints, and changing political priorities. The larger the project, the greater the challenge of maintaining momentum over decades. Uganda's success will depend on whether ambition can be matched by sustainable financing and institutional capacity. Let's look at Rwanda. Which we say is betting on advanced nuclear technology. Rwanda has taken a markedly different path. Rather than beginning with conventional large-scale nuclear stations, Rwanda has positioned itself as a testing ground for next-generation technologies. The country has signed agreement with Canadian-German company Dual Fluid to collaborate on demonstration reactor project, and has actively promoted advanced nuclear innovations through Rwanda Atomic Energy Board. This approach reflects Rwanda's broader development philosophy: move early, embrace innovation, and position the country as a technology hub. Its strength is on speed and flexibility. Advanced reactors, often referred to as small modular reactors or the other next generation designs, are generally intended to be smaller, easier to deploy, and potentially less capital intensive than traditional nuclear plants. For a country with Rwanda's size and electricity demand profile, that logic is understandable. Its challenge is on technology risk. Many advanced reactor concepts remain commercially unproven. While conventional reactors have decades of operating experience worldwide, several advanced designs are still progressing through demonstration and validation stages. This means Rwanda could become a pioneer or find itself waiting longer than expected for technologies that are still evolving. From a risk management perspective, Rwanda is pursuing the highest risk, highest reward pathway in East Africa. Let's now look at Tanzania, which is moving more cautiously. Tanzania's nuclear journey has been less visible but remains active. The country has steadily worked with the agency on nuclear infrastructure development, capacity building, as well as regulatory preparedness. Unlike Kenya and Uganda, Tanzania has generally adopted a slower and more measured pace. One factor influencing Tanzania's interest is its significant uranium resources. While uranium mining does not automatically lead to nuclear power generation, it strengthens country's long-term interest in the broader nuclear value chain. Tanzania's strength lies with patience. In infrastructure development, moving slowly is not necessarily a weakness. Many nuclear experts argue that premature acceleration often creates problems later. Tanzania's challenge is momentum. The country must eventually move from preparation to implementation if nuclear power is to become a meaningful component of its energy strategy. At present, Tanzania appears to be building institutions foundation rather than racing towards construction. Now the question that we ask ourselves, is this a regional race? The short answer to this is no. The political narrative often portrays these programs as competition. The evidence suggests otherwise. Each country is pursuing nuclear energy in different reasons. Kenya seeks long-term energy security and economic resilience. Uganda is planning for future industrial demand. Rwanda aims to become an innovation leader. Tanzania is methodically exploring future options. The timelines, technologies, as well as implementation models differ substantially. This is not a race to build the first reactor. It's a race to build the strongest foundation. Who are these countries working with? None of these countries are developing nuclear programs alone. The international agency, remains the most important common partner, providing technical guidance, reviews, training, and regulatory support. Beyond that, Kenya has worked extensively with International Atomic Energy Agency, as well as engaged potential technology vendors through innovation or information request. Uganda, on the other side, has collaborated with South Korea nuclear firms and maintained relationships with multiple international nuclear players. Rwanda is partnering with Jewel Fried on advanced reactor development. Tanzania continues engaging through international nuclear cooperation and capacity building. Recently, we had Russia coming in. This international dimension is unavoidable. No country in East Africa currently possesses the complete industrial ecosystem needed to independently design, build, finance, operate a nuclear power plant. Let's now move to the cost question. This is where nuclear ambitions face their toughest test. A conventional nuclear plant can cost anywhere from several billions to tens of billions of dollars, depending on the size, financing structure, as well as technology which is selected. Even before construction begins, government must invest heavily in training, regulation, safety systems, and environmental assessments, as well as institutional development. The challenge is not merely construction, it is financing. A nuclear project can take decades or longer before generating revenue. That requires potential capital, political stability, and confidence that future governments will maintain support. This explains why financing arrangements often become as important as reactor technology itself. Now, another question. Are these countries doing it right? Viewed from a project management perspective, Kenya currently appears closest to international best practice because of its emphasis on preparation, regulatory development, and phased implementation. Uganda deserves credit for its decisiveness but faces execution risks associated with the scale. Rwanda has demonstrated strategic boldness, but is accepting higher technological uncertainty. Tanzania has minimized risk through caution, but may need to accelerate eventually if it hopes to keep pace with regional developments. None of these approaches is wrong. Each reflects different national priorities and risk tolerance. And will they succeed? The answer varies by country. Kenya appears most likely to eventually commission a nuclear power plant because it has consistently followed internationally recognized development pathway and built institutions over time. Uganda has the political commitment and ambition but must overcome financing and implementation hurdles. Rwanda's success depends heavily on whether emerging reactor technologies mature as anticipated. Tanzania remains the most difficult to assess because its program is still developing at an earlier pace. What is increasingly clear, however, is that nuclear energy is no longer a theoretical discussion in South Africa. The region has entered the preparation phase of nuclear future. In conclusion, we can say that the real challenge is not technology. The greatest misconception about nuclear energy is that the reactors are the hardest part. They are not. The real challenge is governance. Countries must maintain regulatory independence, train generation of specialists, secure long-term financing, manage public confidence, as well as sustain political commitment for decades. This is the true test facing Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania. East African nuclear story will not be decided by engineering alone, to be determined by leadership, institutional discipline, and ability to execute some of the most demanding infrastructure programs in the modern world. The region has taken its first step. The next decade will reveal whether these steps lead to operating reactors or remain chapters in ambitious national plans. So thank you for reaching this far. You can give us your thoughts about this initiative, East African becoming a nuclear energy region, whether this will succeed. Also, you like, share, and let's meet in the next one.